coming out of the elevators, got like upturned halogen lighting and tray soffits, and
Yeah.
it's super nice. It's hot as balls in there.
We're like, now we have to put in a 4-ton cooling system.
Right.
During the winter, we're running a cooling all year round. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Make Trades Great Again podcast. Andy, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. Say, I wanted to talk today about something I heard on the radio just recently here in the Twin Cities. Do you guys have that like peaked demand pricing structure on your electricity and from your utility company?
We do not. Not at the moment.
How does most of your power in Montana, where you're at, get generated? Where does it come from?
We have we have quite a few hydroelectric dams, but most of that power is owned by utilities outside of the state. That's kind of a weird thing.
Yeah, it's going somewhere else, higher population, stuff like that.
We have this nifty little town, southwest or southeast Montana, central area, called Coal Strip. Okay. And it's a big, huge strip mine, coal mine, and right next to it's a power plant. So we got Coal Strip generates a bunch. I don't know what their percentage of generation is anymore. And then the bulk of the rest of it, I believe, is natural gas. So cogen type stuff.
Yeah. A lot of our power here, it's a lot of different forms. We have the cogeneration, the natural gas. A lot of the coal was switched over to that. Right. We have a fair amount of renewable. I think it's like 30% or something like that. We're still at, I'm looking on the EIA.gov site right now, just real quick so I can give some real numbers. Not that anybody's keeping track or anything, but it says in 2022 for electricity in Minnesota, renewables accounted for 31%.
Okay.
So yeah, it wasn't bad. I said 30.
Yeah.
For net generation, coal fueled is still at 27%. Nukes support 24%, and natural gas 18%. So actually, natural gas is lower than I thought it would be. I thought natural gas took up about 50%. We don't have, as far as I know, we don't have like any significant form of hydroelectric here. I don't know that to be I don't know if that's an accurate statement. Like
Sure.
From what I understand, it's not a big part of where we get our power. But I think more of our renewable is wind, and you would not believe the amount of acreage that is covered by PV panels here. It's crazy. Yeah. I wonder what happened to all the food that we're not growing now. It's insane how you just drive sometimes for what seems like miles next to these fields that are covered with solar collectors on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's interesting so I just kind of did a Google search on it. So Montana's 38% hydro, and I'd heard that it was somewhere in that for 38 to 40% range. I said that a lot of it is owned out of state utilities.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably a misleading statement. It is, in fact, it's owned by Bonneville Power, which is a Washington, Oregon utility. However, they have subsidiary utilities that are a lot of the smaller co-ops and utilities around Montana are powered by that electricity. So I think I probably said that in a not so truthful method.
No, that's okay. I mean, my numbers are all over the place. I said that most of ours might come from, solar collectors, but I'm wrong on that because the majority of our renewable is actually wind. So
sure.
There you go. I think just the friggin' North Dakota blowing across western Minnesota is enough to power up a few homes, I think. They got no trees over there in North Dakota, so the wind just kind of picks up and just builds over time. I bring all this up because I heard on the radio the other day this the XL Energy, which is kind of one of the biggest two in our area for electricity, for electrical. What's the word I'm looking for? Utility, right? Is that the word I'm looking for?
Sure.
There's more than two, but the two big ones in the Twin City metro area,
Right.
XL and Connexus Energy. And I'm on Connexus, but the XL customers, a lot of my customers are XL customers. And this will affect everybody in the state eventually.
Right.
But they were talking on the radio, news report on the radio the other day, and then I saw it on TV too, saying that XL has gone to the Power Commission or whatever they call it here in Minnesota, that more or less legislates the pricing and structure and how all of this whole power industry, utility industry operates here in Minnesota.
Sure.
Rates are set through there. It's all governed and everything.
Yeah. It's not a commodity.
Right. It's a benefit to the customer this way. So I think is if I'm not mistaken, prices are set 3 years at a time here.
Okay.
So rate increases are predetermined, which I think is a huge benefit to the end user. But the XL is petitioning, or whatever the process is, to institute and put in place for the first time here this peak demand pricing structure. And so, to break it down the easiest way for anybody that doesn't know, I'm sure a lot of people listening know what this is, and I'm going to screw it up anyway. Everybody knows that. But more or less, they're going to charge you more to run your air conditioner or your, heat your hot water or whatever, based off of time of day, peak demand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's basically a supply and demand.
Yeah.
Billing. I mean, it's
nothing new because it's been around other parts of the country. In fact, that might have been the norm for as long as we know in other parts of the country. I don't know.
Right.
It's just not been here. It has not been a situation. They have not been operating that way before.
Yeah. Well, we saw some of the downfall of it. I'm sure there's benefits to it, right?
Sure.
It certainly benefits toward the utility, because they get to actually charge what their electricity is potentially worth. But we saw the downfall of that demand billing, 2 years ago in Texas, in the middle of winter when they got that cold snap and froze and broke a bunch of stuff, and all of a sudden it was we can't generate enough electricity and everybody wants it. And all of a sudden these people, for that week period or 2 week period, were getting these astronomical utility bills because the demand went so sky high that they were like, well, it's based on demand. So we can charge what we need to based on the demand. And
it's crazy.
And they did. So, it is interesting to me that you would allow, basically the Public Service Commission would allow that to go on. I understand that, where in a free enterprise, I would hate to have somebody go, you can only charge this much to go do a toilet install or a water heater install or whatever. And that's because we as the Public Service Commission have determined that that's what you should charge.
It's friggin' communism, right?
Right. And so I'm like,
could draw some parallels there.
Yeah, this Public Service Commission thing's a little bit strange. But I think the reason they were implemented was probably because in the beginning they were not. And they
weren't governed in any way. Yeah. So like you said initially, it was almost so power, electricity over on the East Coast, if I'm understanding correctly, in a lot of places, it's a commodity.
Yeah.
It's deregulated, put it that way.
Well,
so the utilities are charging whatever the hell they want based off of demand and
yeah. I have never lived anywhere in an area that does that. So I don't know this, but it would be interesting. We've got a couple of places here in Montana where you have options to buy this or that, right? So for electricity, there's a couple of I don't know what to call them, rural areas where both utilities serve a neighborhood, right? And you can choose which one you want.
Yeah, that's kind of like your cable or whatever.
Yeah,
or remember when we used to have landlines,
right? And so
we're going with AT&T at our house. No, we're Southwest Bell.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
Exactly. So you start looking at things like that and go, well, as soon as you apply that market structure where there's competition, then you don't necessarily need the Public Service Commission, right? Because they're going to kind of self-regulate each other, because somebody's always going to be offering something for more or for less, right? And so that's going to keep the price at a market value, if you will, or just establish a market value. But if you have a utility that says, I'm the only, let's say in your place, XL or whatever your other one is, Connexus,
yeah.
Connexus. If Connexus is the only one that can serve power to Elk River, right? They're the only ones around. Right. Well, and you let them set the pricing, guess what?
Yep.
That's a monopoly, because you don't have any option. And that's why the Public Service Commission came into play.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. I'm sure there's way more to it.
Way more to it.
How you and I, two very intelligent plumbing and heating contractors, understand this stuff.
And there was no investigative journalism harmed in making it.
There was no. We did a little at the top of the hour here when I pulled up the EIA.gov.
That's right.
I don't even know what EIA is.
I finally got that site to load. So for anybody that's incredibly interested, Montana has 45% coal-powered and 48% renewable energies. So
you guys, but your percentage-wise, though, I bet you, because your population density is lower than Minnesota. So I wonder if you're less. When you say 45% and I say 27%, it sounds like Minnesota's less polluting, right, with the coal, but it might actually be different because of how much is generated.
Yep. So I'm looking on the production page.
Yeah.
And if you go all the way to the top of your production under Minnesota, it should say total energy.
I'm looking at analysis and profile analysis. So where do you look at production?
So go to click the data tab.
Yeah.
And then go down to where I don't know.
Wow, there's a lot of cool stuff on this site.
There's a lot of really interesting data here.
Oh, look at the map. Oh man, everybody, this is so cool.
You should see this
out.
Great radio here.
Yeah, I know. And then we're not even showing graphics on the screen for the YouTube version of this podcast, but this is really, there's a lot of really cool information if you want. Okay, here's a production tab on a graph.
Yep.
Nukes.
Yep.
150 trillion BTUs. I don't know what that, I'm not even sure what this is.
So the majority, it looks like the majority of the U.S.'s production is 42.2% is natural gas. And then the next larger piece is renewable, which would be hydro, wind, solar. And then nuclear is 19.9%, coal-fired at 16.2%.
Jet fuel is a power source.
Interesting.
Wow. So they're powering generators with fuel.
Must be. I mean, I guess if you're powering a jet or some sort of turbine.
You know how much hydroelectric is in Minnesota versus all others? Not enough to even show on the graph. That's how little we have. So I didn't know any numbers, but I was right in saying, like, I don't really think we have any. Big one here in Minnesota too is what are they calling it? Biomass is one, and then the other side of that kind of coin is the incineration. So there's a fair amount of wood and waste is what they call it.
Right.
So there's a fair amount of power production here by burning garbage.
Biomass stuff. Yeah, interesting.
And so they, in fact, Elk River, our town here, has shut down because of, like, apparently just commerce. They weren't making money. They had a transfer station where they were separating garbage into recyclables, and then the rest of that was conveyed over like 2 miles to the generation plant, and it was burned to produce power for the city.
Crazy. Here's an interesting stat. Energy source used for home heating, share of households. So natural gas is the highest, 50.9%. Fuel oil, 0.6%. If any of you are all looking to move to Montana to start a fuel oil company, don't. It is a limited market.
Yeah.
Electricity is 27.7%. That's substantially higher than I thought it was going to be. Propane is 12.4%, and other, it says other/none, which I don't think that's an option for home heating. 8.4%.
Wow.
So that must 8.4. That other/none must be like wood heat.
Yeah, biomass, pellets, wood.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I bring all this up, that power and everything like that,
Yeah.
because as you know, you and I have talked about in the past, but we have a ton, and for decades have had a ton of systems in place here in Minnesota where we've got what we just out in the field, we call it off-peak heating or off-peak electric, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know that it was invented here by any means. I'm just going to lay claim that there was a major manufacturer here that built these water heaters that were initially conceived to address this whole kind of pilot program. Like, this is a system that works. We're going to make it a thing here in Minnesota. And so you're familiar with Marathon water heaters, or Rheem Marathon, right? Rheem bought this company, this Marathon water heater company.
Right.
And what's significant about these Marathon water heaters, anybody not listening or wants to learn more about this or is interested in this kind of stuff, I think it's pretty cool. It's this plastic tank water heater, and they come in all different sizes, but typically what we did in the early 2000s and on, and we still do it, we installed these 105 gallon storage tank, electric resistance storage tank water heaters.
Right.
And they're plastic tank with 2.5 or 3 inch, like closed cell polyurethane foam insulation jacket on them.
Right.
Couple elements, like 5,000 watt elements, nice ones too. Titanium. Things would last forever. Yeah. And, with top connections, just standard water heater, but huge and plastic. So all the significance about all of this was that it came to the original owner at a lifetime warranty.
Right.
So now you've got incentive from the manufacturer standpoint saying, hey, we got this product that we're going to guarantee for you. It's not going to rust. It's not going to, it's plastic.
Yeah.
Right. And it was a good product, by the way. Still is. The whole reason why this worked or came to fruition was electric companies said, hey, if we put a separate meter on and connect your water heater to it so we can control this thing on and off, based off of time of day, if you store this massive amount of water at typically a higher temperature, so we were typically setting these, we put a mixing valve on them. We set them at like 130, 140 degrees, 135, and then mix down to the, 115, 120 degree delivery temperature. You could provide pretty much any normal household, 5-6 people, easy, with enough hot water for the entire day, but they would only heat at like 11 o'clock at night until like 4 a.m.
Right.
And so you'd heat all night long when there's no demand on the grid.
Right.
And then they were controlled through a radio signal transmitter, like a little antenna connected to the meter, more or less, just interrupting a relay on the just the power. Like, there's a microprocessor involved, so it would allow power or not to the unit from the meter.
Yeah.
And they did this, that worked really well, and then they did it with with air conditioning systems.
Sure.
And the whole point of this, though, the incentive to the customer was they would finance these water heaters. The power company would sell it typically. Okay. Initially, like that was a big push. Like a new neighborhood would go in and they'd be like, Connexus would say, hey, we're the utility here. And if you buy your water heater from us, and then now you're on this electric off-peak system, we're going to give you an electric rate for your hot water and your air conditioning, if you want to hook up to it or whatever, of like 1/2 the kilowatt hour.
Right. Right.
And so people were like, yes, please. Thanks. because it made it super competitive against natural gas.
Yeah.
It's, relatively clean energy. Like you didn't have gas lines, things like that in your house. People, it's people look at that, and you and I don't. We don't care. But they just thought, well, if it works, let's do it, and we get a discount, so there's incentive.
Sure.
We just have to live with the idea that once in a while they're going to shut off the air conditioning when it's at its hottest point, which is going to suck, but probably just for an hour or two.
Yep.
We're going to save all year round, no matter what, and then we're going to get cheaper electric rate for hot water, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting that, to think about that. Maybe I'm more of the norm here in thinking that utilities have it. I guess prior to the last few years, I've had some amazing conversations with a couple of people that are involved with utilities here recently that have changed kind of the way I understand how that process works. And one of the things I guess I thought previously was, well, all the rebates and all this stuff is all funded by the government, right? It's all subsidies. And
most of it's manufacturers and the utility companies themselves.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And so a lot of this utility rebate, the rebate, like here's a box of light bulbs. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I don't know if you guys got that or not. I mean, there was a period, Northwest Energy would send, like once a year, would send us a box of light bulbs. And Missoula Electric Co-op was the same thing.
Because they could manage it in a smaller, don't get me wrong, your community is way bigger than mine, as you know, but as a whole, smaller metropolitan areas, they're probably like, look, we got to bite some of this off in big chunks here.
Well, and I think that was their look on it was, I mean, we've had to figure out some way of managing this, right?
Yeah.
And I think my outlook on it prior to kind of having a better understanding of it was that there was ample electricity, right?
Yeah.
There's plenty of electricity. And the thought never crossed my mind that that the state did not produce as much as we used, right? Or my utility didn't produce as much as the utilities.
Yeah, it had to come from
customers.
somewhere, and they weren't making all of it themselves.
Right. So therefore, this whole off-peak scenario shows up. So it's not necessarily that in peak demand that the utility's like, well, we got to turn the generator up. We're going to make some more power. That's not the case. They're already running at their maximum capacity. They now have to buy from a neighboring utility. Right. And the neighboring utility is like, guess what? We're for sale. Here you go. And it, maybe it's double. I don't know. Maybe it's triple. But if you have a public service commission that's regulating your utility price, the utility now has to buy at the high rate from the neighbor to sell to the local or sell to its customer at the normal everyday price.
Right.
And so that kind of sets up this scenario where all of a sudden their cost to produce goes through the roof. Right. So their incentive is, well, if we bought $1 billion worth of peak energy, right? If we bought $1 billion last year,
but we can only
from the neighboring, we didn't make any money on it because we didn't produce any of that. So that's a $1 billion loss.
Yeah.
Now, if we say let's spend $700,000 or $700 million on CFLs and LED light bulbs, and we send them out to our customers, can we reduce the load by 700 million or maybe by more by reducing where our demand's at? And I thought, well, God, it's just weird. The peak demand's got to be 4:00 in the afternoon in the end of August.
Yeah.
And it's not.
No.
It's so not.
It's when everybody wakes up in the morning, isn't it?
Yeah. It's so buddy of mine, Scott Mayfield, does a bunch of stuff with a bunch of the Pacific Northwest utilities. And he's one of them that's kind of opened my eyes to this. And he's probably gonna be like, no, you got it completely wrong.
No, exactly. To this. Yeah. Disclaimer. We've not done any investigative journalism.
Right. Scott may or may not have actually said these things.
No, his name is Jim.
Jim. Sorry, Jim.
Jim.
But right. The peak day is like end of February. The peak use in the Pacific Northwest energy is like end of February at like 5:30 in the morning.
No kidding.
Or 6 in the morning. Yeah. And I was like, how in the world is that the peak use? And he goes, well, think about it. It's dark out, right? So all the lights are going to be on.
Yeah.
Everybody, and the majority of people are getting up between the hours of 5 and 8 to get ready for work.
Yeah.
It is 100% dark in every single household outside of every household in the Pacific Northwest in February between the hours of 5 and 8, right? You're going to need lights.
Yeah.
Okay. The majority of
your setback thermostats are kicking on. Now heating systems are running. Yeah.
Yep. And I just showed that stat. 24% of homes or 27% of homes are heated with electricity.
Yeah.
Right. Setback thermostats are coming online. People are in the shower, just like you just said.
Burning hot water.
Electric hot water.
Yep.
Right. The toaster's on, the coffee pot's on, the microwave's on, the range is on. Every electric massive appliance that you have, barring maybe the dryer.
No, in my house, the dryer gets kicked on because nobody wants to iron anything. So they're just like, just throw it in the dryer.
Just throw it in the dryer. It's cheap. Yeah. So he goes, and to top it all off, we have zero solar production at that point in time.
Yeah.
Goose egg on the solar.
Yeah. A little.
So if you've got
30% delivery there.
Right. If you've got 30% of your grid is solar powered, well, you don't get to store it. It's not like the utilities got these, Amazon sized warehouses of batteries. Right. I mean, they just don't exist. So the solar is great because it supplements, you can turn back maybe other production methods. Well, during the peak of the day.
Yeah. You can lower costs. Burden throughout the daylight hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's basically what that
so it's interesting to think of it in that aspect and go, oh, interesting. So the utility found that it was cheaper to send me a box of light bulbs 3 years in a row. And I'm not talking like a box, like here's 2 light bulbs. This was like an Amazon package with like 35 or, 3 cases of CFL light bulbs. Like change every incandescent light bulb in your house, please. Here, we'll give them to you. Here's floodlights.
Here's CFL era. Did they do it? Did they start doing it during LED?
And then they redid it again during the LEDs. So twice now, and since I've been a homeowner, I've seen, a box of light bulbs. And I like I say, I always assumed, oh, well, federal government's got to deal with Fight Electric and whatever, and they bought 17 container loads of light bulbs from China or wherever, and here you go. Here's your light bulbs.
Let me ask you this. I got to be careful how I say it because I don't know what your feelings are on it. Remember when we were first told that that they were going to stop making incandescent light bulbs?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were no longer going to be able to buy them?
Right.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
There's people listening that have no idea what I'm talking about right now.
Not a clue.
There's people listening that don't know what CFLs are.
Right.
Okay. What's your take?
Count yourself lucky.
I actually just replaced 2 of those in my house recently.
Yeah.
The ones in the stair light, the box in the wall, you know what I mean?
Yep.
What's your take on we're not going to be able to buy incandescent lights? Be honest. Just tell me what you.
I don't even remember that. I mean, I do. After you said it, I will. Oh yeah, I forgot about that because it never happened.
Certainly. Nah. Can you still?
I can still go into Lowe's and buy incandescent bulbs. Yeah. Yep. There's like 3 distinct sections of Lowe's light bulbs now.
Okay.
There's like all your bougie light bulbs, like smart bulbs. Yeah, that's where I shop. And then the next one is, like all your LEDs, like 7 different colors of LEDs.
Yeah.
In 700 styles. And then there's the incandescents that are like, here, you get this clear or frosted bulb in 60 or 120 watt. Here you go.
Well, okay. Yeah. But, okay. basically they've been replaced though.
They have
As a whole. Like, can you buy them? Sure. You have no choices, and this is like you have a T19 socket style. That is it. Like nothing else, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But do you? Okay, what I'm getting at is this. I'm not trying to bait you into answering this question. I think it was hilarious how people reacted.
Yeah.
Personally. Now, of course, a lot of times people might think like, oh, this guy's voting for this person. Definitely, but no, you're wrong. You have no idea what my politics are. And this is not a political matter, but it's often closely tied to like that kind of way of thinking. I laughed. I can remember some of my family like hoarding light bulbs and thinking in my head, this is the dumbest thing I have ever.
We can't get any more light bulbs.
Yeah. I was like, are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, you think this is going to like affect your life, like your quality of life because of one technology over the other? Like, they're replacing it for a very good reason.
For a good reason. Right. We use too much power. We can't produce enough to serve you.
They're so incredibly inefficient. They increase your energy burden, whether it's during heating or cooling season. Like, they have an actual effect. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy how much like smaller cooling equipment has got for commercial buildings based off of load, because they've removed like 30% of the cooling load by changing the lights to LED.
Right. Here's a perfect example. So like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I was managing or doing the maintenance on a building, right? 4-story building, office building, all heat pumps. And the second floor undergoes this remodel, right? This beautification remodel, right? So basically all of the public areas, it's an attorney's office, goes into, new ceiling tiles, redid the floors, it's super nice. Very nice, high end. Yeah. Yeah. And the architect or the interior designer's like, we just love these lights. These lights are what makes everything. And they're these like directional halogen lights.
Oh, they put out 1 billion degrees.
And they put in like 60 of these freaking halogen lights throughout the reception area, like shining on pictures and shining on this clock. And,
the lights up. Engineer's like, this is beautiful, isn't it? And everybody's like, yep, it is.
Yep. The foyers, like, coming out of the elevators, got like upturned halogen lighting and tray soffits. And it's super nice. It's hot as balls.
We're like, now we have to put in a 4-ton cooling system.
Right.
And during the winter, we're running a cooling all year round.
That first summer, I get a call from them. They're like, oh, we're pretty sure the air conditioner's broke. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'll come take a look. And I come down and I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, it's running tip top, but it's like 75-degree discharge air because it's 86 in here.
Yeah.
Why is it so hot in here? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And I'm scratching my head, and finally I'm like, oh, yeah. It's you took this 3-ton system that was marginal at best, and now is, got an additional 50,000 BTUs of heat load.
Right. It's undersized by 20% now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. And I'm like, we should change these light bulbs. And they're like, oh no, we paid good money for those light bulbs. I'm like, can we get yellow LEDs?
Yeah. Need some 2700K.
Yeah.
Oh, the lighting thing at our house has been a thing, I'm in the process of trying to replace. So I have just the traditional early 2000s. I have the can lights.
Sure.
With the can housing.
Yeah.
Probably you have the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to trim them out with those retrofits, the discs that like clean it up and get rid of the bulb.
Yeah.
But I got to find one that works. Anybody listening to this knows one that really truly holds up in tight up against the ceiling. Doesn't have those stupid little curly cued end wires that spring tensioners that just
kind of sort of hold them in place.
They just don't. They don't. There's always a gap. I hate it.
What your old ones had the like the springs on them, And
like the big metal, like 1 inch
like
wide
tension pull string. Yeah.
No, like a big, like spring metal tab.
Oh, interesting.
Like 3/4, like they're tight. No, there's nothing.
Yeah.
Look, there's nothing wrong with our current trim, the
Right.
original.
Right.
Except the new style just looks nicer because it's
Cleaner.
sealed, right? Anyway, all right, we're off track. That was cool. So yeah, off-peak systems been a thing here in Minnesota forever.
Yep.
Now they're kind of, it looks to me like they're shifting this cost burden of power generation more completely to the end user by wanting to switch to this peak demand. And that's gonna change people's usage patterns. It just will. There's price conscious people out there that won't be able to run air conditioning and stuff summertime. They're gonna have to take a cost burden of like changing their water heating methods and things like that based off of price. They just really are. They're gonna have to at least explore it. And it's just a changing landscape. And I'm glad we talked about it today. We spent too much time on this already.
Right. I guess at recap, I'm not excited for it to change if it ever changes here in Montana. However, I also look at it and go, you know what? All of these 30-year-old rooftop units that have crap insulation, that are running horrendously poor efficiencies on the cooling side, this is good in the greater scheme of incentivizing those building owners to go, okay, we need to upgrade because this is going to cost us a fortune.
Well, don't get me wrong. Part of the reason I want to talk about it today, we didn't really get into it. I mean, we're going to have to cover this again. Maybe we can have that Jim Merriweather.
Jim.
Your buddy that did or did not say, and may or may not be named Jim. No, we should have, we've talked about that in the past. We want to have him on, or somebody like him, but it will bring work our way. It just will.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. I kind of alluded to it a minute ago in a recap. Like, look, this is going to push customers to explore options. Yeah. It's going to push toward the heat pump. It's going to push toward whatever new technologies coming our way. It's going to shift some people to gas. It just will. If they're on electric, they're going to look at it and go, you know what? I've got a gas furnace, but I've had an electric water heater. Let's just switch it. It's not a huge, like your water heating cost overall is not huge, but it's going to turn into a high, it's going to increase your cost burden. It just will.
Right.
Anyway, it's going to produce business on our end, on the, installing contractor.
Right.
So can't be all that bad.
Yeah. No, not at all.
All right, dude. That's almost 40 minutes here. We're just like
cranking.
This should have been 2 episodes. All right, dude. I appreciate it. Everybody, please hit us up over in the DMs on Instagram. Hit the if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you can see a link right in our show notes there. You can send us a message or give us feedback. Please give us a rating. We haven't asked for a rating for a while, Andy.
I know.
If you can find it in your heart to give us at least 5 stars, maybe 6. It's up to you. I appreciate it.
You send the 6th one in the mail.
Yeah. Andy will send you $5. All right. See you guys.
See ya.